Okay, well, I have 1 o'clock, so I think we will go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for being here this afternoon. The purpose of this meeting is for Patrick Seal with Reality U to share the nuts and bolts of his awesome program and let you know what the expectations are on the district side to make this student event successful in your schools. So before he begins, I wanted to share a few items on the Greenbush side. So I want to take you back briefly to April when we announced that our Greenbush Perkins Consortium would no longer be able to allow equipment and supplies reimbursement due to new interpretations of the Perkins law at the state level. So we went back to the drawing board as a Greenbush team and discussed what would not only be allowable through the new interpretations, but what would be most beneficial for districts. And we started focusing on students. And Reality U was a program that we kept going back to. So I personally have had the privilege of volunteering at the Silver Lake Reality U event for, I think it's 4 years now, as a parent. And all three of my kids have gone through the program. And I am blown away every time by how engaged the students are and how much they really learn about finances in the real world. So it's a really slick program if you're not familiar with it. So in terms of logistics, your district Perkins contact should have received an email on August 12th from the Perkins Consortium email address listing the services and the reimbursements that your district would be receiving this school year. So this particular Zoom pertains to you if Reality U on site was listed as a service that you're receiving this year. So for those districts and those of you on the call, you were to contact Patrick at Reality U and set up a date for him to come to your school. And so if you have any questions about whether your district has done that, when did you book, any of those questions, you can definitely ask Patrick those questions today. I will throw his email in the chat while he is presenting his part of it today to make sure that you can contact him if you have not done so. So in terms, another logistical item, in terms of billing, your district will not receive a bill for the Reality U event in your school. The invoicing will stay between Reality U and Greenbush. So we are taking care of that. So there will be no reimbursement process in place, unlike the PD system that we have. So that's a little bit different. So you will not receive a bill for this event. So I think that's really it on my end for now. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. I will be monitoring the chat, so feel free to throw any questions in, and I'll make sure that we respond to them. Also, if you haven't noticed, I am recording the meeting. I will send this out to all of you via email, so please feel free to share it with your event organizers if they are not the ones on the call today. Also, if you have seen Reality U in action and you happen to be on this call and you want to share your insight or your feedback, we would love to hear from you after Patrick shares his information. So, Patrick, it is all yours.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. One quick housekeeping. I do have a couple of other members on the team, Jacob Bentley and James Tully. So if you'll hear from any of our team members and we dispatch and go and travel around the state doing Reality U, I do see some familiar faces in the room, so I'm glad you all are here. I'll just start by giving you a quick rundown of what is Reality U, and then we'll kind of take off from there and leave some time at the end for questions and answers. First of all, Reality U is not curriculum. It's a 75-minute financial literacy simulation. And its design is experiential learning and not necessarily something that we have curriculum going on in classes, which means it's a single day event. We target 8th grade and 10th grade. Now, if your school is smaller in the 1A, 2A, 3A range, and you feel like we've never had this at our school, we want everyone to have it, we can figure that out. We'll do 8th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade your first year. That's typically how we like to do it. And when we set this up. We're trying to create kind of a momentum where the students will come and see Reality U every 2 years. If you're a school that we've been doing Reality U at for a while, by the time your students become seniors, like in Silver Lake, where Jamie's kids are, what happens is those seniors then become extra community volunteers, which I'll talk more about the volunteer piece later. So the idea here is really, it's very simple. We want students to experience that life at age 26 is going to have a ton of extra expenses. Life is expensive, and we want them to know this is what's heading your way. So how we do that is we create this simulation where the students go to the gym and they wander around and pay their bills. We set up 12 stations, or we call them booths, and they're typical things that you all do all the time. Pay your car payment, get gas, have a house payment, utilities, get a phone, have some fun, eat out, all the different things you think of in your regular budget. And we have forms that will tell you what each booth does, and all the different things too that we'll send out. But the idea is that those students will have a chance to see that life is full of these expenses and we had no idea. So the nuts and bolts from a student perspective is we want them to see that life as a 26-year-old is going to end up costing a lot of money, and I need to be financially ready for when that happens. How we accomplish that task is that the students 2 to 3 weeks prior to your event date, which is the very first step in Reality U, by the way, is you want to make sure you have a date on our calendar so that we know when we're coming. 2 or 3 weeks prior, we'll have the website, the back end of your website opened up so that they're able to go in, each student, and fill out what we call the Real You Online. So they'll get on, and it takes 2 to 3 minutes. It's very short. And we ask questions like, what kind of a career do you want? Do you want to be married? How many kids? How old do you want those kids to be? Do you even want cats or dogs? Like, we ask all these different questions so they can try to get a picture, a snapshot, if you will, of what life at 26 could look like. Those career choices also align with the individual plan of study really nicely. We have them broke up in the same format that the state of Kansas uses for careers. In Wichita, that's where I'm based out of, Wichita, Kansas. My whole team is. We actually pair with USD 259 as a part of their individual plan of study that all their 8th graders and 10th graders will have a chance to experience Reality U, because it makes those decisions that they're making, choosing a career, give a little voice to it, right? Sometimes they're just clicking through, picking whatever. Well, that's helpful in some ways because they get to look up a lot of career options. But when they find out, like my little girl, she's in 8th grade, she wants to be a teacher and she wants to be an art teacher. And then her twin brother wants to be an engineer. And when she got her results of taking this Real U Online, and her brother made twice as much money as her, she was angry. And she came at me with guns blazing. She was like, Dad, this isn't fair. What's going on? I'm like, but honey, you get to be a teacher and impact kids. And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, this isn't fair. And I said, well, you need to, work on this. And it was a really aha moment for her that teachers make different money than engineers. Now, my son, who's an engineer, was quite happy with his choice. He was ready. He's 13, thinking this is his direction. But we want to give real life moments for these students when they're picking something that they're able to say, yep, that's what I want to do one day. So the point of view of the student, they walk into the gym. They've already completed the Real U Online. They even got to decide if they wanted to be married. Now, what's really fun about our system, and it's a bit of teamwork, if you will, is that those students that picked, hey, I'm going to be married when I'm 26, when they walk into the gym and find out the results of the Real You, they're going to be paired to somebody else in their grade level for the entire simulation, which I know sounds a little bit chaotic that two 13-year-olds just got paired together to now travel around and spend their money as a team, but they do great. They do fantastic. Yes, there's a little I say 10 minutes of Reality U is 10 years of marriage. And so pretty soon you'll see the young lady telling the young man, come on, we're going this way. You can't have a Tesla or whatever. You'll see some cool conversations happening, but that happens. And it's a lot of fun for them. And they do realize too that being married gives them an advantage because now they have 2 incomes to pay for 1 set of household needs. The other thing that we allow the students to pick is kids. If they want to have children, and we stop them at 3 because otherwise our middle schoolers would pick to have 100 children and the simulation would break and they would run out of money and it would be really hard. So what we do is we stop them at 3 and only let them go up to age 4. And so when they get the kids and they then approach the childcare booth, because that's an important booth that we have, they'll see that childcare is actually quite expensive. And they'll start to evaluate, what kind of childcare do I want? We have options for them. And that's what's really neat too about Reality U is we'll bring all the information sheets for every single booth that I'm going to mention. We provide all of that and set up everything in your gym so that it's very, very clean, very easy process for the students to meander around, know where they're going, know what bill they have to pay. They keep track of it on what we call the passport, but it's really just more or less a modified checkbook register with a plus and a negative column. And the neat part about when they do move around these stations, if they chose to have kids, we also bring 4 simulation baby dolls that we've wired to scream and cry. So then each student has a chance to hold a crying baby while they pay their bills if they chose to have kids. And although they're battery powered, they're not real kids. That would not be fun. But the interesting part is the students really take into it and they rock it. They're sweet to it. We see them singing. It's kind of fun to see them kind of grabbing that responsibility and meeting us at a very high bar of execution. They do really well at that. Now, I will say sometimes they get a little agitated that the baby's still crying. And they're like, Mr. Seal, what can I do? And I'm like, well, you're 2 minutes up. And I take it, turn around, and I rotate it to someone else. And that's a fun part of Reality. So again, the student perspective, they're walking into the gym. They only didn't need to bring a pencil. They don't need their Chromebooks or iPads or anything. And they have a chance to see, this is the choices that I made for the real you online, projecting what I think my life will look like at 26, and then wander around the gym and pay their bills. Now, the point of view of like what I would say you all is that inside the gym, there'll be 12 tables. Think those white 6 to 8 foot tables set up around the basketball court. So we need kind of the whole gym for the day or however long we're there. And when they're there at those tables, they're going to be spread out so that we have time in place for students to stand in line. And they're going to then have a chance to make decisions on what kind of food do they want to get? Do they want to eat out a lot? Do they want to go on dates with their spouse? We have ways for them to just spend a little money. If they chose to have cats and dogs, they have to buy them food too. So every little decision they make has a financial cost that they begin to see down the road. The fun part of how the gym looks is that it is a little bit chaotic. The students will sit in your stands on one side or the other. They'll have a chance to hang out with their friends. They can be a little bit loud. This is not where they need to be really quiet, and just enjoy and laugh and learn. As they're moving through, they're going to be interacting at each station or those booths with a volunteer. And there's 2 volunteers per booth. So if you were going to write down a number, this would be one of them. 24 volunteers from your community. You might say, Patrick, that's a lot, or I'm not sure how we can do it. Don't worry, we've got something we'll send you out that if we lived in your town, this is who I would ask. So for instance, at our insurance booth, it's a great idea for you to ask some folks that sell insurance. And typically they love to do that. I even had one school, State Farm was the local insurance agents that showed up, and they brought a cutout of Jake from State Farm, and the kids loved that. They thought that was really neat. So think really wide open. Who can we get that loves our town, that loves our community? Banks, credit unions, of course. I really recommend school board members, because this is an excellent point for school board members to come in and see the life of the school in something other than football, basketball, volleyball, something other than sports. See the students interacting, walk in the school, take a look at the facilities, and just be a part of it. So school board members are also great. But we have another whole document that will help you with finding the volunteers. So as the students are moving around and they're kind of making their decisions and they're being little grown-ups of age 26, we do enforce a couple of pretty big rules. The first rule is we don't do math for kids. So we have calculators on every table, and the students are expected to enter and add up all of their expenses, put it in the appropriate category, and have a chance to practice real world math. That's an important part that you don't want to take off and mess with. Your money's really important, and we don't want them making mistakes there. The second rule is I ask the volunteers not to hold those crying babies for the students, because they look like they're struggling, trying to hold a baby, write something down, add a calculator. Let the struggle be real. That's what I say. Just let them have that opportunity to do that. And the third one is we don't let them go below zero. So if a student is overspending, they're running out of money, as they say, I'm going broke. What we tell them is you're not allowed to go below zero. So if you want more money, then you need to go visit the Help I Need More Money booth and get another job. And this is what we tell them in the orientation. Life is simple. If you want more money, work for it. You can either work more or spend less. It's up to you. They can go then get a job driving Uber or DoorDash. They can babysit, do lawn care. They can even be a referee or an umpire. That's one of the jobs that I always like to recommend because we need more umpires. We need more referees. We need them across the state of Kansas. It makes great money. So it's an excellent side job, especially students who love sports. That's a great way to fill up your time and help your community. The point that we're making in those and going to that Help I Need More Money booth is that it's not just unending amounts of money. At some point, you have to go, okay, maybe I can't afford 2 Ford F-150s. I'm going to have to go back to transportation, trade them out, and get something cheaper. They're going to make that decision and that discovery on their own. They're going to have a chance to see that, wow, I've got 2 extra jobs. This isn't working. What should I do? And they're going to problem solve that and actually then go and make that decision. So for us, that's kind of a key point is we want the accountability with the student. We want them the ones making the choices. This is what I think I want to do. Here's the result of that. Oh, wow, I've spent way more than that. Maybe I need to start with more money originally. Our hope is then they go back to their counselor, CTE coordinator and say, hey, I think the career path I'm on, like my little girl who wants to teach art in the school, I think I'm going to need more money. Let's look at careers that you can be interested in too. So we want them to have real world experience for when they're doing reality. So if you look at the way this session moves throughout the day, again, there's 2 sessions before lunch, 2 sessions after lunch. Typically before the start of the first session, 30 minutes before, another key thing to write down is the volunteers will arrive for individual training and what I would say general orientation for the volunteers. So that means anybody can volunteer for any booth. They don't have to be a banker or an accountant or someone who loves math or numbers. No. If they've paid their bills even 3 times in their life, they're good to go for Reality U as a volunteer. Because again, remember, these students have never done it. So let's have a chance for those young people to see that life is expensive. So we need wonderful volunteers in the room. Things that make volunteers successful, I think, is just being willing to have some good energy when you talk with students. Like be excited, introduce yourself when they come to your booth. What do you do for a living? And ask the young people that. It's neat to see them say, well, I'm an engineer or I'm a teacher. Great. How many kids do you have? And they look down on their sheet that's printed right there that tells them, do you have dogs or cats? And just talk through some of their decisions real quick in a very small amount of time. They'll make these decisions, build some rapport. And if we do Reality U right, your students will not just have a chance to interact with the Reality U team, but actually 24 members of your community. And that's, to me, the secret sauce of Reality U. When the community comes into the school for something other than sports, pays attention and tells our students, you matter, and we care about where you're heading financially, and then gives them that good advice. That's the fun part. Each session is going to look identical to the next. So whether it's 8th grade or 10th grade, 11th grade or 12th grade going through, they're all going to be identical because bills are bills. How they make decisions, you'll see that, especially from a volunteer's perspective, that a senior is going to know a lot more. And those are the ones that are so close to already being on their own or maybe going to university, going to tech school, that they have a chance to practice a little bit about what's coming their way. Now, when it comes to careers, we have one more piece that I want to mention, that when the students are actually choosing which career to take, they've inputted their GPA. So students will need access to the GPA, and they'll put their live GPA in that will lock and unlock certain jobs. Now, before you guys say, now, Patrick, is yours just skewed to everybody go to a 4-year university? No, not necessarily, because yes, you can be a dentist or a doctor if you have a 4.0, but you'll also have a $200,000 student loan. Many of the students will pick what I would consider the tech school jobs, like HVAC or a diesel mechanic, or an apprentice lineman. And those jobs don't require that high GPA, have a much smaller student loan, and make a considerable amount more money than even teachers and counselors, right? And so we want to show them that no matter which direction you're choosing, you're going to want to make sure you have enough funding. The third element inside that, so we have the university kind of typical jobs that people are interested in. We have the tech school jobs, and then we also have military options, which we think are critical because that will allow them to get a four-year education, maybe get a master's for free. They'll have a much simpler time in Reality U because many of their bills are covered by the military. So this whole complex thing is happening, but the students, they fill out this 3-minute thing online. They show up to the gym with a pencil. They get a little orientation from a Reality U team member. Then they spend their money for about 60, 65 minutes or so. In the last 10 minutes of every session, we gather everyone back up, including the volunteers, into the stands, and I ask them some basic questions. Which booth was shockingly expensive? Uh, what would you do differently? But my favorite question to ask them, and we do this at all of our events, is when you get home from school today and you see your mom, dad, parent, or guardian, and you're telling them about your experience here at Reality U, what will you tell them? And the interesting part here is we're fishing for one single answer. Now, a lot of students will raise their hand and say, I'm never getting married, or I'm not having kids, or they'll say something funny, and that happens. I'm sure even some of your students will too. But eventually, I'm waiting for that one student who says, I'm going to go home and say thank you because I had no idea this was so expensive. And I'll stop the moment right there. I'll give that student a whole bunch of candy and just say, thank you for thinking of that, because expressing the attitude of gratitude is a powerful thing in life. And then I'll turn to the volunteers right there in the middle. And I'll just say to the volunteers, if at your places of employment, someone demonstrates an excellent attitude, how many of you would immediately hire someone with that positive attitude? And of course, all the hands go up. And then I'll ask the students, now this is where we sometimes get it twisted. If our attitude isn't on point, if we don't have a positive attitude, in fact, we're a little bit negative or toxic, what happens in the workplace? And again, we'll look to the volunteers, and that's where they'll say there isn't promotion, or sometimes you get fired, or it just doesn't work out for you. Because we're trying to teach that your attitude, that thing you control, can make the difference in whatever direction you're heading. And then I'll tell some stories. We'll ask more questions, and that's about a 10-minute process. And then we're done and we'll dismiss the students, and the next group will come in and we'll do the same simulation all over again. Now, I'll take a breath here and then see if there are any of my colleagues. I see Katie is on there and a few others, Lynn, who have done Reality U with me in the past. If you would be willing to just say a couple of words about Reality U.
I'd be happy to, Patrick. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Let's see, Renwick. I'm from Renwick, which is Andale, Garden Plain, Colwich, and St. Mark's, and we have done Reality U probably 6 to 8. I mean, it's been a long time. I don't really know. I'd have to look back. It's been a long time. But we every year do our 8th grade and 10th grade. And we do that because we feel like at least then we're getting a shot at, if they've come in or transferred into our district, then they've got that 10th grade year, hopefully that they get the same information. My biggest a piece of advice is reach out for volunteers early. So we know our date, we send it out early, and we get a lot of parents that volunteer because once they know what Reality U is, they want to see their own kids in that setting. So that's fun. We've had board members that come every year. They love it. So board members are good. And then local banks have been very, very good to us. So once they see the program, we have lots of repeat volunteers. So typically I send out a big mass email to all the volunteers that have worked with us before and say, hey, can you join us again for this year? And yeah, it works really well. So it's a good learning experience.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take a few questions.
There are no questions in the chat. I will tell you, Kathy with Altoona Midway was wanting to talk to you maybe about partnering with another school. I looked on the spreadsheet. They haven't booked yet, so I told her that to get in touch with you. I did throw your email in the chat a couple of times so people could reach out if they had not booked yet. But yeah, now is definitely the time. And I guarantee if you're thinking of a logistical question, somebody else is too. So if you have not done it before and you're wondering about tables or the volunteers or any of the specifics, now is the time to ask with Patrick here.
Did you mention how long the session should be? I might have missed that.
Yeah, great question. So 75 minutes is the minimum length for each session. We can go up to 90 minutes. We try to customize it to the bell schedules so that it makes the most sense for the students. But many times, because we're taking out the whole 8th grade or the whole 10th grade at the same time, teachers are okay with just dismissing, over the intercom and then bringing them back. The 30-second kind of highlight is you want to start on your volunteers as soon as possible. So this first step in Reality is get a date. The second step is, in order for you to start your volunteers, we kind of need to have the structure of the day. Is it a half day? Is it all day? Is it just the afternoon? And so that means with some coordination with myself or my team to be able to come up with, okay, we're going to do 3 sessions, 3 grades. Here's what we're thinking. And then we'll set that up. We'll build the back end of your website, and then we'll send you a link that's really helpful that you can send to volunteers where they can sign up online, and then their names will just appear on the website already coordinated for you and make it really simple. So I would say date first, then get with somebody on our team to build your schedule, get the back end set, and then start on those volunteers 6 to 8, 6 to 8 weeks, if possible, is what I would say. I don't know. You could do it in less time. I've seen schools do it in a month. It's not a big deal, but I think getting the right volunteers in the room, meaning ones that are energetic, can take time off, that would really be important.
Patrick, we have a couple of questions in the chat now.
Okay.
So Jacob is wondering, how far in advance should students complete the online portion?
I would say within 2 to 3 weeks, because students with absences, particularly with illnesses running around, we want 100% of the students who attend the simulation to have completed the Real You online prior. Meaning that if a student walks into the gym and they just didn't take it because either they just were gone or we just kind of skipped them, they're not going to get a piece of paper with their name on it that customizes the kind of the realness of what we were trying to achieve. We have blanks that we bring that can at least allow them to experience simulation, but that pre-work with their name on it, it's really critical. We encourage too, any students that you might be keeping out for the day due to in-school suspension or troublemakers, we want them in the simulation if at all possible, especially special needs, high needs students. Please let them come, please invite them. We have ways that we modify the simulation itself so it's a little more enjoyable for them, especially if they have a para coming with them. But we really want everyone to come if possible. That's a really key thing for us, is we want to reach and make access to any student and every student across the board to be able to experience Reality U.
Quick question on that. You said have them do that online. Is there some way that we as a district are able to track who has completed that and who hasn't, so we know, versus just taking word of, oh yeah, I did that?
Yeah, brilliant question. So once we get on and we create your site, we're going to make you an event coordinator so that even something as simple as when the students take it and then you hit the match button to see who they're paired to. Occasionally, there'll be some pairings. Like I was at a school where cousins were paired, different last names, and the event coordinator was to go in and see that, and she was able to break the match. And then what our system will do is pair them to a stand-in profile. So instead of the name of a student, they'll get a name of another occupation. That way they're still able to participate, but they're not married. That also, they're still married, but they're not married to a physical person that day. So not only will you be able to see who's completed it, you'll be able to see who the system is pairing to, and you can even hit the match button and reshuffle it again to get it so it's just right. But every student that wants to be married will be married. You'll be able to restrict if you don't want them paired to someone. You can pick a stand-in profile. And that works for some students who maybe have some behavior issues and they just think, okay, I don't want them to wreck someone else's day. Let's just make them with kind of what we call a fake partner for the day. And it still works great because they get all the money and they still have to feed and water that fake spouse too.
Another question in the chat, Patrick, what do you recommend for group sizes for each session?
Oh, that's a great one. Okay, so minimum per session is around 40 to 50 students. Maximum is like 70 to 90. Ideal is 60. We can do up to 4 sessions in a day. Sometimes it's 3 before lunch. I should have said that before, because some of you all start at dark 30 and you just can get 3 sessions in. You do lunch and then you do a session after. One thing I would tell you about your volunteers, they may be sticking with you the whole day. So put out some water. I always say, don't forget to feed and water your volunteers. They're the most trusted part of this process. So let's make sure they have a world-class experience in your school, including lunch. I know some schools are pretty far away from any fast food options. And so you might want to bring in some pizza, or many times you can get a local restaurant to come in and donate sandwiches or something. But I would highly, highly recommend feeding and watering your volunteers. So next step for me would be, if you have a date, is to probably jump on a phone call with one of my team members and build your schedule. And since so many of you are doing it the first time, Katie, you've done it before, so we're probably going to say, hey, you want something similar? And she'll say, yep. And then we'll just build it, and then she'll tweak it, and then we'll release it for her and her team. But if you're brand new and you're thinking this is a lot, just jump on a call with us and we'll walk through, like, here's what I would do. But just remember, 30 minutes before the first session, the volunteers arrive. Typically setting up for the gym takes 30 minutes. So my team or myself will arrive 30 minutes before that. We love the afternoon before, but we know your gyms are pretty full. Yeah, I see a question in the chat now that's, if we're a small school, would it be best for us to combine with 2 different classes? Yeah, I think that's one of the neat ways our system works, is that we could have 8th and 10th come at the exact same session, but we're able to break them apart so they're not married to each other. So then only 8th graders would be paired to only 8th graders and only 10th graders. And then same thing if we did 11th and 12th. So yeah, I think that would be an awesome way, is have 2 classes, 2 grade levels come at the same time. That's one way to get to our minimum number, if you will.
I think that's it for the questions in the chat. Anyone else have questions? You want to unmute, throw it in the chat before we all part ways? I know I told you to be around 30 minutes, so we're about at that mark now. Well, if you are not sure if someone in your district, I've had a couple of private messages, people are like, have we booked? So if you're not sure if your district has booked, or you're not sure the date or all of those things, reach out to Patrick. I've thrown his email in the chat several times, and I can do that one more time. Yeah, I would say a majority of our districts have booked, which is awesome news. And because Patrick, as you can imagine, he's traveling to your schools, so his schedule is nuts. And I dropped a bomb on him when I said, hey, I have 80 districts and most of them are going to want Reality U. So it's a good and a bad thing. But anyway, he is traveling quite a bit. And so the earlier you can to book with him, the better. And if I remember right, Patrick, fall is pretty booked for you. So if you haven't booked yet, you can probably anticipate being a spring event. Am I correct in saying that?
A little bit. If somebody's got a particular day or two, we're happy to look at any of them. And we have 3 on our team now, so we're able to kind of get a few more dates released in the fall, but it's pretty cooked right now. Springtime's great. Watch for those days when, you might be done with state testing and you just need an event or something, or if you have a particular holiday where your school is out, or your school is in but everybody else is out. Those are great because volunteers can come in. I know, Katie, you do it on a holiday and everybody loves that day. So there's just ways to make this really customized to your schedule and your school, and that's what we want. I also love to do Zooms with schools and just let you know, like, I am more than happy to do a Zoom with you guys and just say, hey, what's the best way to make it perfect in your town? And we can do that. So I had somebody, let's see, Jamie, do we want to cover, I think we can cover the cost of what Greenbush is paying for. Did you already cover that with them?
In terms of the billing, the invoicing, they won't be receiving any bill. Yes, I mentioned that at the very beginning. But yeah, for those who came on later, just a reminder that this is a service that is being supported by the Greenbush Perkins Consortium this year. And so you will not be receiving any kind of invoice. That's something that's occurring between Greenbush and Reality U. So it's not a reimbursement process like our PD is. This is a service, again, on your end, Patrick has explained the volunteers, the gym, the meeting with the students, all of the things, the online survey, getting all of that taken care of. But we will take care of all of the billing and the invoicing and all that good stuff.
What is the cost if we wanted to implement this again next year and it was not covered by Greenbush?
Okay, thank you for asking that, Leah. I would say what we do is we charge $2,500 for the day for the 4 sessions, 3 sessions, 2 sessions. It's billed at 67 cents per mile from Wichita, and then there's a $200 travel, lodging, food fee. So think it's less than 3,000. If we can pair you with another school close by so that we can half the mileage, we do that as well. So if we do you one day and another school the next, we can decrease the mileage costs. But we ask that districts don't use their school budgets for this funding. We ask that it come instead from the community volunteers, and that would typically be your banks and credit unions. That's where we ask the funding to come from. Now, I have some superintendents and principals and people who are like, nope, we're putting this in the budget because we want to make sure we get it. We don't want to be dependent upon an outside agency. But for us, it's really critical that that moves to the responsibility of the financial side to the community, because we want their buy-in. Because when we have strong buy-in and the volunteers feel like this is their program, no matter who your principal or superintendent is, they're going to do this program and they're going to fund it and make sure it's working well. Some districts, again, they do their own thing, but for me, I want to make sure it's not a part of the school budget.
And Emily, I will address what I think the point you're making in the chat with your question. Will this opportunity be offered again at a later date? In terms of the Greenbush Perkins Consortium financially supporting Reality U in your district, that was only written in to our Perkins application for FY25. So for us to cover it, it has to be booked during this calendar year, or excuse me, during this fiscal year. So that would be, yeah, Patrick's like, what? Fiscal year, not calendar year. Two different pieces of language here. No, the fiscal year. So that's what we're operating on. So I hope that answered your question, Emily. And if it does not, feel free to correct me. Okay, any other questions? These have been great questions. Patrick, you gave some great information out to them. As he mentioned, feel free to email him, set up a separate Zoom if you have lots of questions that you just don't want to ask today, or you're like, I'm not really the right person, but I'm going to share this recording. And then if other people have questions, they can reach out to Patrick via email or set up a Zoom with him. But you do have his information, and I'll throw that in the chat again. But any last parting words here, Patrick?
Thank you all so much. I'll see you soon.
All right. There were a few people who private messaged who said they had some questions and wanted me to stick around. So feel free, if you have everything that you need. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. I will stick around if there's any other questions. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you, Patrick, for all you're doing.
Yep. Thank you all.